Hello everybody and welcome to the South Florida Power BI user group. I hope that everybody is ready and excited for another great presentation. This is our worldwide presentation sessions where we are very welcome to the South Florida Power BI user group. I hope that everybody is ready and excited for another great presentation. This is our worldwide presentation sessions where... Give me a second, I'm going to restart here.
Yep, no problem.
Go to this game. Is it coming through your side there, Lou? The feedback or no?
Let me quickly check. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
It's coming down right. Okay.
Is it coming through your side there, Lou? The feedback or no? All right, folks, just a minute. Hello.
It's coming down right. Okay.
All right. How is it now? Everybody can hear us well now? Yeah, there's no sound back, no loop back.
I think it's okay.
All right. Everybody can hear me? Pardon me. Let me transition here, folks, and I'll be back in a second. All right, we're set. So we're just going to do kind of a restart. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the South Florida Power BI user group. Thank you very much and for making time in your busy schedule to be here with us. And in our worldwide presentations, where we are very fortunate to have individuals from around the world joining us here to talk about Power BI. Today we have Lou Segers, who will be talking with us about Power BI performance. A very exciting and dynamic presentation. Thanks for being here with us, Lou.
Yeah, thanks for having me, by the way, Adriano.
Hey, thank you there, and thanks everybody who is joining us now. And folks, let me know if you all can hear us well and everything. And please take a minute. Remember to subscribe, like the video, and drop a comment so we can continue supporting you, that we see that we are delivering a subject that is of value and to reassure us that we are going in the right direction. So do not hesitate. It really helps us here to see the direction we are going is the right one to provide you with more value. Anyway, before we start, we're going to ask just a couple questions here to Lou. As I mentioned, it is worldwide presenters we have here. So tell us, Lou, where are you from here? And where you speak
Okay.
from?
Yeah, great. Thanks for the introduction, by the way, Adriano. I'm located here in Belgium. I think there in Florida it's about 4 in the afternoon. Here where I'm staying, it's a quarter after 9 in the evening already. So that's quite a big time zone difference. But yeah, that's very important, I think. What am I going to talk about today? I think that's a very interesting topic as well. Today I'm going to talk about Power BI performance. Power BI is having more and more traction. People are actually creating reports, but yeah, when they actually get into problems, whether they immediately turn to their IT department, and it's their problem to solve, in most of the cases, performance issues. The reason why I'm I've chosen this topic is actually you can avoid a lot of these obstacles immediately while creating your report, and you don't have to turn to your IT department in the end. So that's actually my main takeaway. I would like to give you guys a lot of different guidelines what you need to take into account when creating a report.
Great. So it will be a very exciting opportunity here to learn on how, and I would say like tips, tricks, best practices in order to
Yeah,
avoid
that's about
future
it.
problem, right?
That's exactly it, indeed.
Excellent. So folks, you can see already the kind of value we are able to bring here, and everybody can fine tune their skill sets if they're already an experienced developer and or user. Otherwise, you can definitely, as you go through your learning journey, learn, get some great tips here from Lou. All right, Lou. Anything else you wanna tell us about you? What do you like to do?
Yeah, so I'm Lou Segers. Actually, I've about 4 years of experience within mainly focusing on the Microsoft BI stack. For over the past 2 years, I think I've developed a huge interest in Power BI as well. And that actually caused me deep diving into this tool. The presentation that we're going to give today will last about 50 minutes. If you have any questions, any comments, you can always put it in the YouTube chat. I'm pretty sure that Adriano will follow up about these questions, these comments coming in. I'll also mention this during the presentation a few times, so you don't forget about giving any comments or questions. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll be happy to answer all of these questions, issues, or comments. So this will be the structure of this presentation.
All right, good thing. And so, without further ado, let me transition and let's get going here. There'll be a very exciting presentation today. So, folks, have a great time and thanks for being here with us, Lou, and as well as you all from home or the workplace. So, it's all you, Lou.
Okay, great. Thanks. I'll be sharing my screen an instant. Okay. This should be just fine now. Okay, is my screen visible for everyone? Adriano?
Yes.
Perfect. So if everything is fine, then you will be able to see my first slide now. So the whole presentation will be actually very train-based. We are going to start with a slow steam locomotive, and we are going to turn it into a streamlined high-speed train. So we're going to lift the performance. That's basically it, what we're going to do during this presentation. First of all, of course, an introduction. I also already talked briefly about who I am, but what we'd like to give you some more information about myself at the beginning of this presentation. So I started working in 2016, currently working for Lytics. It's a Belgium consultancy firm, which mainly focuses on Microsoft tooling based on the Microsoft BI stack. I've, especially for the last 2.5 years, I've been emphasizing on Power BI and deep diving into Power BI. It actually became one of my hobbies. So I really like to find out more about Power BI every day, actually. Good health is true wealth. Every now and then, I really enjoy, for example, a sweaty run or a satisfying gym session. Sadly, due to the Corona guidelines, we are not allowed to go to the gym anymore as of this Friday. So that's a little bit of a pity. But anyway, we'll find out some other occasions, some other things to get our health up and running. If you would like to get in touch, you can always reach out and connect to me via Twitter and via LinkedIn. Perfect. That being said, the agenda. What are we going to discuss today? Well, First of all, I'll be telling you guys something more about the report best practices, which things you really need to take into account when creating a report. Afterwards, I'll be telling you guys how you can resolve a slow dataset refresh. That, of course, is also a very common issue when it comes down to performance. Lastly, I'll give you guys a recap and we'll evaluate the performance of our model. I'll give you guys several ways of how you can actually measure the performance of your reports. Perfect. The first one, so report best practices. What are the things you really need to take into account when creating your reports? So some guidelines. The first one, only keep the necessary visuals. Every visual that you have on your report, please overthink it. Every visual should have some kind of meaning. It needs to mean something. If it doesn't mean anything, just throw it out there, because it will just it will just give you a lack of performance for every single visual that you add. Hide whenever possible. Every hidden visual actually doesn't take up any rendering time. When you open your Power BI report, the visuals that are hidden, they won't take up any time to load the report actually. The third one, use backgrounds. So in many of the cases, people, they like to add some banners. They like to add some canvases, all of those things. But keep in mind, all of those things actually need a lot of rendering time. Use background. Every time that you will see this label, I'll show you guys some kind of demo how you can actually apply this in a practical example. Okay, so for this first one, use backgrounds. At the moment here, if you can see this, I think you can see this, yes. Over here, we're having a Power BI report. This is a very simple report. What it actually involves, it's based on zoom in. Okay, like this. Perfect. If we're taking a look at this one, this is actually the data model that it actually is based upon. It's simply one of Microsoft sample databases, the Adventure Work database. It has about 60,000 records within the fact table, so nothing special about that one. It simply connects to an Azure SQL database. That's actually the source for this report, and I'll be using this one during the whole presentation. So we have fact internet sales, we have a dim product, we have dim sales territory, we also have a dim date. It's a pretty straightforward model with only one-to-many relationships, by the way. That's a good thing to remark. Okay, so I've created some visuals already. So for example, we have a product filter over here, filtering the top customers, filtering the sales over time, etc. This is actually a very basic report. What people actually are willing to do, they would like to create a title. They would like to set this in some kind of special color. And in most of the cases, they do this by actually inserting several shapes, but all of them, they take up a lot of rendering time. What I suggest to do is actually to format it with a background. Over here in the painting brush property, you can actually simply select, if you don't select a visual, you can easily create a background image. I can only advise to do this you can do this in any tool. For example, even PowerPoint will do the job. You can export it as a PNG. You can simply set it as a background, and immediately it looks a lot different, the whole report. And especially, it doesn't take any rendering time for all of those separate shapes. It's only one background that we're using at the moment. Okay, so if we're heading over back to the back to the slides. Always try to stick to default visuals. That's a very good advice that I can give you guys as well. Only use the marketplace as a last resort. All of those custom visuals, I know they can come in handy in many cases. For example, if you need a decograph or you need some very custom things, then you can head over to the marketplace. But I would only do this as a last resort. A good example. How did you, for example, create a hierarchy filter, let's say in the beginning of this year? How I did it, there was actually one solution. You could only go to the marketplace, and you could only download the import the hierarchy slicer. It was a custom visual, and actually everyone used this filter because the default Power BI filter, it didn't support hierarchies whatsoever back then. So this is how I did it in the beginning of this year. Let me quickly show you guys how it looks like. So this is the default filter. This is the default that you can have in Power BI. You can get more visuals and head over to the marketplace. You can look for the hierarchy slicer. Okay, and many of you guys will also might have done this in the past, and you can actually replace this one by this one. So this is actually how it looked like in the beginning of this year. As of February 2020, so as of February this year, Power BI actually updated their own default slicer, so the one over here, and actually integrated, supported the use of hierarchies. So at the moment, you can use the default slicer. You don't need the hierarchy slicer anymore. But this is just an example how people, actually cope with some things that aren't by default, that aren't out of the box in Power BI. I'm coming back to this later in the presentation, why this actually has a very big impact on your report performance. Okay, so stick to default visuals. That's the one I just mentioned. Then we're heading over to the second one. You should always avoid both directional relationships. Why? It's actually the #1 performance killer. If you have two separate tables, for example, you have a fact table and you have a dimension. In the example, you can see it's a fact table and the location dimension, for example. If you set the both directional relationship, if you enable it, both tables will filter each other. Every single time, every interaction that you're doing within your report, both of those tables will filter each other. It's not a one directional, it's a both directional, and this of course impacts the performance significantly. Yeah, I am aware that many of your customers maybe or you would like to use those both directional relationships. For example, if you have a dimension and you would like to use it in a slicer, but you would only like to see the attributes that actually have fact values linked to it, please still don't use a both directional relationship. There are other solutions. For example, using a cross filter. It's a DEX function on which you can through which you can actually enable a both directional relationship only during the runtime of one specific measure, not for the rest of your data model. Or you can add a contrast filter and filter your dimension attributes based on this contrast filter. So those are two alternatives to the use of both directional relationships. Okay, if you have any questions already, feel free to add them to the YouTube chat, and I'll be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. Okay, then for the base measures. Actually, according to me, this is the most exciting part of the presentation. This is something I really enjoyed using. Well, what are actually base measures? Base measures is actually the first measure that you write upon one of your columns. For example, we have a column called sales amount. There's one measure that you create, the first measure that you create up on top of this column. So without any business logic applied, this will be your base measure. It can be a sum, it can be a min, it can be a max, any kind of those measures. This will be the base measure. Why? Several reasons. It prevents your report from breaking when column names changes. Yeah, of course, if you can actually build your logic around all of these base measures, so you can always refer to a base measure. If you need to make some changes, you can always do it in the lowest level of all of these base measures. So you only need to apply your change of business logic only once, because all of the other measures, they are actually layered up on top of your base measure. So that's a major advantage. You actually avoid a lot of repetition within your code, and of course this is very error prone as well. Your code gets a lot more maintainable. I think that's pretty straightforward. Please always write a base measure up on top of a column. Don't ever use a straight column. Always use the base measure that you write upon it. Actually, I have one big tip. If you are a Power BI creator, try to use the Tableau Editor. For those who actually don't really know the Tableau Editor, yeah, let me quickly introduce it to you guys. Okay, so let me head over to this one. Okay, so we have the exact same report over here. Within the external tools, over here you will be able to have two different tools, being the Tableau Editor and Docs Studio. The Tableau Editor is actually a tool. It has been there for quite a long time already. And what does it actually do? Every Power BI report that you have opened, open in your Power BI desktop on your local machine, it's actually an analysis services instance that is running locally on your desktop. It's very easy to connect to these analysis services that are running locally. So this is actually what Tableau Editor does. It makes use of the TOM. It's a tabular object model. It's actually an extension on the AMO library, and it actually makes use of this extension to be able to connect to the analysis instance. So what you can do, you can open the Tableau Editor, and you can actually connect to a local instance of an analysis services. For example, this can be the report that I've opened over here. So this is the AdventureWorks Tableau Editor report. Okay, let me quickly open it. Perfect. So what you will be able to see over here, it's actually very intuitive. You have all of your tables, you have all of your relationships, measures, every single piece of your data set. You will be able to track by making use of Tableau Editor. So I can open my tables. You will be able to see all of your tables. I can only advise you to also add the metadata columns. You will be able immediately see what kind of data that it is. Is it live? Is it direct query? Is it an import? And also for all of the different columns, this is a very useful feature. You immediately see what kind of type it is. Is it a column? Is it concerning a measure? What kind of format is it in? What's the actual source? What kind of data type? All of those things are immediately visible when using Tableau Editor. So it's a very big advantage that you have when creating when developing your Power BI reports. Okay, so let's assume we would like to create a base measure. So let's head over to our report. Within our fact internet sales, we would like to have, for example, we can even create, let me open the first report. Okay. What we can do is within this report, we can write a measure like this one. So we have the sales amount in one of the columns. Over here, we'll be able to see the sales amount. Always write the base measure up on top of this column. So this is exactly what we did. We can write a sum of the fact internet sales amount. This is one of the measures that we now created. Okay, perfect. If you would like to create a second measure, you can create all of the measures that you would like to create. Please do mind if you've created some Power BI reports already. I think it's pretty obvious that it takes quite a long time to create such a measure. You need to wait every single time. You need to wait 2 or 3 seconds for it to load. You need to create a measure over here, and then it still needs to create a measure, and it all takes some time. Okay, what is a better solution to do this? Like I just explained, we're heading over to our instance, this one. Quickly going to connect to this report. So it's the start report. Okay, we have all of our tables over here. This is the measure that I just created. You can clearly see, okay, it's a measure, this kind of format, this data type, etc. Okay, so what are we going to do? It's very handy actually. You can immediately see all of the different things. For example, we would like to create a new measure. You can create it over here as well. So for example, you can create a sum of for example, the sales amount. You can always drag and drop it over here, so that's very easy as well. So this is our new measure. Let's call this one sum sales amount Tableau Editor. Okay, perfect. Now, and what is the interesting part? If you save this one, you will immediately be able to see this measure popping up in our Power BI report. So it actually creates a live connection to this it actually tries to create changes up on top of this data set, but it deploys it automatically. Perfect. Okay, so these changes, we can do it a lot faster, of course, if you do it like this. We can copy this measure a lot of different times. All of these measures can immediately be adjusted. So that's a major advantage already. That's not the only thing. What we can do as well is we can, for example, we can put it into a display folder. For example, I would like to see it in a measures display folder. Okay, it automatically updates this one as well in the Power BI report once I publish this as well. Okay, so it pops up over here. It's very easy to do this because you can select multiple measures as well, and you can immediately place them into this specific display folder just by adjusting this one. So this is a lot faster than dragging and dropping within your Power BI desktop itself. Okay, so that's very interesting, but you can imagine we don't only need a sum of sales amount. We also need, for example, a year to date. We also need a past year measure. All of these DAX measures, we can of course create them in Power BI Desktop, but it will last a while until we've created them all, especially if we need to do it for not only the sales amount, but also for the unit, also for the order quantity, also for the extended amount, also for the discount amount, and all of those different columns. Okay, when does it get interesting? Well, let me quickly undo all of our changes so we don't have any measure anymore. Okay, what are we going to do? Some very interesting part that we can do is we can use advanced scripting. So you can actually open up, I've created them before already. You can actually open up and you can create, for example, I would like to create a base measure. Okay, and it generates some code. You can actually adjust this code just the way you would like to see it. It's written in CSharp, so it's a pretty straightforward language, and you can actually programmatically make changes to your data set. This is a very useful way to automate your work. Some thing that I did here is I immediately created a measure. I called it sum of then the column name. Afterwards, I also set a format string, and I also set the original column to hidden, because that isn't necessary. I only want my end consumers to use a measure and not a specific column, not a specific source column. Okay, so I can easily save this one. I can easily save this one as a specific. For example, I would like to call this add base measure, and you can save those actions as well. This needs to be an action that I can apply on a column. Okay, add base measure, perfect. So what does this do? If we go over to the column sales amount, and we choose for a custom action, we have add base measure. Okay, let me quickly click on this one. What does it do? It exactly does what we expect it to do. It creates a new display folder, being the measures display folder, because it didn't exist yet, and I told the column to create a base measure within the measures display folder, and it created a measure with the correct naming convention that I supplied within my C# code. Okay, let me quickly save it, and it does exactly what we expect it to do. If we can, let me quickly refresh this one. Okay, like you can see over here, it pops up over here. Perfect. So what is very interesting as well, we created only one now. Well, we can go even further. We can also create a new sample. For example, let me load another one up, and it's the year-to-date measure. Okay, I would like to have a year-to-date measure of this base measure as well. Okay, let me edit as well. Actually, I edited before already. So now it will simply create a new measure, and it will be called year to date. So it's pretty straightforward. We can do this. We can apply this custom action, and we can also create a year to date measure up on top of this. Immediately it gets created. We can see it once again. It gets created. Okay, very interesting. Let's assume you have some. You have written some. You have created a DAX measure yourself, and for example, you've formatted it in a different way. For example, this one. In my opinion, a very useful custom action that I can only strongly advise is to format your DAX code. If we actually use this one, then your DAX code will automatically be formatted, and you can immediately do this for all of your measures, of course, because you can auto select all of them. Okay, perfect. This is very useful as well. What do we can of course extend this further and further and further and further. The last piece that I would like to show you guys is that we can also combine this all into we can create several time intelligence functions, not only the year-to-date one, but we can also create a past year, year-over-year change. This is the year-over-year change percentage, quarter to date, etc. All of those time intelligence functions we can actually combine in one specific script. Okay, I've already edited to my custom actions. So the end result, what is the end result now? Let me quickly make this visible. So for example, I would like to create for all of my measures time intelligence functions based on base measures. If I would do this in Power BI Desktop, it would probably take me about let me think, maybe 10-15 minutes for all of those measures, because in total it will be about 30 measures. Let me quickly show you how you can do it now. So we would like to see it for the sales amount, for the discount amount, for the extended amount, for the order quantity, for example. All of those things I would like to see, would like to create the intelligence functions upon. We can just simply create the base measure. Okay, it will pop up over here, and then afterwards we can simply select all of them as well. Custom actions, we create all time intelligence functions, and all of these measures are auto created. That's not the only thing that we did. We also set the correct formats. For example, a year-over-year changed percentage. It's formatted in the right way, exactly as we told the advanced script to do. So that's very, very useful to do, and it will save up a lot of time during your development, especially if you need to do a lot of repetitive work. I think it's a big advantage on when you're creating your Power BI reports. Okay, I've saved it as well. You will be able to see it over here. All of those measures are right over here. And if we would like to present them in a visual, all of those measures, they work exactly as we would like them to work. So I think, in my opinion, there will be no error. It will be very, very robust, and it will save you a lot of time by using Tableau Editor instead of creating all of those measures yourself. Okay, perfect. If you have any questions about the Tableau Editor part, feel free to ask them to actually post them in the YouTube chat, and I'll be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. Do we have one already? Yeah, let me take the time at the end of the presentation, then I'll be covering all of them, if that's okay. Then I can proceed with the presentation first and then tackle all of the different questions if there are any more. Perfect. Very interesting as well, the reference versus duplicate. Yeah, not a lot of people use this one because they just think, okay, let me just do it the way that I would like to do it. Well, duplicate a query isn't the same as referencing a query. If you reference a query, then the query that you referenced will always be the one that is the right one. So all of the logic that you are writing on top afterwards, after your referenced query, it will always be your reference query will always be updated. A duplicate query is just a one-time copy of the mQuery code, and you can just adjust it, but there won't be any link between the two queries actually, and there will be a link when you reference a query. Okay, avoid bookmarks. This is actually one of my personal guidelines that I in some cases you can't avoid them. They can be beneficial in particular situations, but I really like to avoid them. And why? Because they're really not maintainable. Especially if you have a lot of different bookmarks, then it can really be a pain in the ass to update all of them. Alternatives: create separate tabs in the same report, or use dynamic measuring, for example, with a switch statement in DAX. I would really opt for an option like that. Okay, data modeling. This can also be a very good performance winner. Well, if you are creating your report, I can only strongly advise to stick to the Kimball dimension modeling technique. Always try to split up your data model into separate dimensions and into facts. Yeah, the two biggest advantages are, of course, we minimize data redundancy and we optimize our query. We optimize for query performance. We don't have any duplicate data, and of course we will always link on integer keys. So that's all of those things are very very interesting when it comes down to performance tuning. There are some other things regarding data modeling that I won't be tackling during this presentation, but I would like to briefly mention them. For example, the use of always try to use integers instead of text. It's just simply faster to if you link on integers, the performance will be better. Use role-playing dimensions, so actually use one and the same table, input table, and reuse it for several occasions. In many cases, it's the best example is a date dimension. You will be having a date dimension, for example, for a ship date and a due date. Please reuse the same dimension. Okay. Yeah, of course, avoid snowflaking. I think yeah, that's one of the good advices as well. Please do take this into account. It's not a must, but if you can avoid snowflaking, please do it and stick to your store schemes. Perfect. Next one, mind your date tables. There is Power BI actually offers an option. It's called the auto datetime. It's actually a feature that is enabled by default, and I can immediately show it to you guys as well. If we head over to the option settings over here, it's one of the it's the one over here in data load, this one. So auto datetime, by default, it is actually enabled. Oh. Is it better like this? Okay. So this is the feature. If you click on OK, this is the default behavior. So by default, they're enabled. Let me quickly show you guys what it actually does. If you, for example, head over to the fact internet sales, you will be able to see several dates. For example, we have a due date, we have a ship date. And for all of these dates, it's not simply one date column. No, it will generate actually a date dimension instead of the one column that we loaded into our data model. So there's always a whole hierarchy that is automatically created next to it by default. Please do disable this feature. Let me quickly show you guys why. We also have a tool called Duck Studio. Let me quickly show you guys why you should disable the auto datetime feature. So we have Duck Studio. Let me quickly open it up. Perfect. We're here. Yep. Okay, so if we connect to a new data source, then we can easily connect to once again. It works exactly the same as a Tableau Editor. It connects to an existing local analysis services instance, and it can actually launch queries on the existing data set that it finds over there. Let us connect to this specific report. Okay. Then Duck Studio is also a very interesting tool next to Tableau Editor, and it actually is more for performance tuning of your DAX measures. That's actually the main purpose why I use it. It has a lot of different features next to the fine-tuning of DAX measures, but I mainly use it for this matter. Another thing that it actually also includes is you will be able to see the structure of all of your different tables. We will see them over here. What you can see as well, we only have in our model, we only have those few tables actually. What you can see in Duck Studio, actually Power BI generated a lot of extra additional tables, a lot of different extra date tables. For each date time column that you have within your model, it has auto-generated another table, a local date table, and of course this takes up memory. This takes up a lot of space as well. It takes up it makes your data set also bigger, of course. How we can actually see the difference? Well, if we go to the advanced tab and we view the metrics, then we actually Power BI is actually built upon the Vertepack engine, and this feature, it relies upon this Vertepack engine to launch some queries and to actually get more insights upon your data set. What you can actually see is you will be able to see all of the the columns, not only the tables, but also the columns. You can see per table what the cardinality is. This actually means this distinct number of values. So 60,000 records we know my effect internet sales. Then column sizes, some additional interesting facts as well. You will be able to see, for example, the database percentage size, which table actually consists of what percentage of the total dataset size. So in my case, there's a this is actually a very big table, the dim customer table, because it takes up to 33% of my total dataset size. That's quite a lot in comparison to the fact table, which only takes up about 26%. So those things are very interesting to take a look memory within your dataset. Okay, what is very interesting as well, we can take a look at the summary. So total size of my dataset. It's 11.2 megabytes. This is the total size of my data set. Of course, this is a demo data set, but I just want to make sure that if we so it's 11 megabytes now, 15 different tables, almost 200 different columns, etc. I would like to point out a difference. If we, for example, now head over to the options once again, and we disable the auto date time like this. Okay. The result will be that, for example, the due date simple column, it's not creating any hierarchy whatsoever anymore. No auto creation of any hierarchy. And if we connect to this table once again, to this data set once again from DAX Studio, and we take a look at the view metrics, you immediately can see that it's the total size is only about 8 megabytes. So that's a huge difference. Of course, the data set is very, very small, but that's in percentages. That's of course a very, very big difference. And you can imagine this is only for a small data set. It's only one fact table. We only have like 5 different date values, 5 different date columns. In many other Power BI reports, you will see hundreds of different date columns. Of course, in those situations, then it quickly adds up, and performance-wise, it won't benefit whatsoever if you keep on creating those auto date times. So big guideline, important guideline, please disable them, and you can use DAX Studio to get more insight within your Power BI data set. Okay, split granularity to a lower cardinality. Yeah, should you split date time values? It's of course the typical answer. It depends, but if I can give you an advice, in most cases, I would split date time into 2 separate columns, being a date column and a time column. Why? Because Power BI is it's actually a column store model, so it doesn't take into it mainly takes into account the distinct values of a specific column. It takes into account that more than the row count. For example, a typical SQL database data model, it's mainly used to intermediate queries and to build queries up on top of this query. If you're unchecking the include in report refresh, data won't be refreshed at all. This is mainly used for very static data, data that is practically not changeable and won't change over time. For these queries, we can actually advise to uncheck this include in report refresh, because it simply isn't necessary to take up refresh time and refreshing them each time over and over again if it is exactly the same data. Okay, spread your data refresh schedules. I think this is a very straightforward one, but yeah, we've came across several cases in which people actually don't know who is refreshing his data set at what time, and then we need to figure it out by making use of the Power BI API or checking the Power BI audit logs and actually find out when do people refresh their data. And in many of those cases, people were actually refreshing their data at the exact same time, causing a traffic jam. And your data set, when it's scheduled, for example, at 12 a.m., the first day will be refreshed at 12 a.m. Second day will be refreshed at 20 minutes later. This is a very clear example of a traffic jam. Okay, so please avoid these ones and get insights in when your data set refreshes, your automatic data set refreshes are scheduled. Okay, you can also endorse your data sets. If you have a verified data set, please please also indicate this to your end users and add an endorsement. You can if I'm not mistaken, you can add at least 2 different endorsements, for example, a certified one and a promoted one. Please use these and indicate to your end consumers, okay, this is a verified data set by the business. You can use this one to create your reports upon. And especially if a lot of different reports are based on this specific data set, this data set only needs to be refreshed once. Okay. Data restrictions. Reduce the data amount. I already mentioned this. If there are a lot of different columns that you won't use, for example, the address of a customer, it takes up quite a lot of data storage. We saw it. I think it was like 3 or 4% in the example we had over here, and there's not a lot of data. Just leave it out. Don't load it into the model if you won't be reporting upon it. Query folding is also a very important one. You can actually, within your query editor, let me quickly illustrate this. I think this will become very clear as well. If we go to the query editor, for example, these tables, they're all sourced from an Azure SQL database. Okay, what we can actually do is, if you can see, let me quickly check this one. If you can see the view native query option being highlighted, so not grayed out, then you are still query folding. Query folding actually means if we now apply, for example, I would like to filter, I would only like to see the Saturdays within my data set. Okay, then I filter these rows. If I right click upon this step, we will still see the view native query. We will still be able to see, okay, the query that is being sent to the underlying database is actually a select star or select specific columns from my dim date dimension. And I also apply this filter. And this filter is actually pushed through the underlying data source. It's not loading into the query editor all of the data. No, it immediately applies this filter and pushes it down to the underlying data source. Only the data that you actually need will be loaded into the query editor. So this is something, please do take this into account. If you, for example, delete a column like I do over here, you delete this column, and afterwards you would like to filter your results once again, you will. Let me quickly check. Okay, it is still a smart. How it actually worked in like 2-3 months ago. If you remove the column, you won't be able. You lost your query folding. At the moment, it seems Power BI is getting smaller and smaller, and that's actually a very good thing because a lot of different people, they removed columns afterwards, filtered new rows, and they lost their query folding, and it wasn't pushed through to the data source. I'm very happy to see this, that it actually still is pushed to the data source now. So they actually updated this one. I'm very happy to see this. Okay, heading over to the presentation once again. Yeah, once again, if you have any questions or any remarks, feel free to add them in the live chat in YouTube, and I'll tackle them in about 10 minutes at the end of my presentation. Okay, so reducing data refresh times. There are a lot of different strategies that we can actually use or apply. For example, the incremental refresh, data modeling techniques that I explained earlier, the managed aggregations, those features are very, very interesting when it comes down to reducing dataset refresh times. I'm not going to all of them. I will briefly mention the advantages and the disadvantages because it needs to be in your toolkit. You need to think of, okay, I need to reduce my dataset refresh times. What can I do? What are the several options? Because there, in most of the cases, there aren't a lot of different options. You can lift the performance of your Power BI desktop file. Secondly, you can take a look at incremental refresh, managed aggregations, or any other data modeling techniques. That should be your checklist. The first one, incremental refresh. This is actually if you have a lot of data in your data set, and you don't need your data to be. You don't need a full load. This is actually what an incremental refresh does. It only loads the most recent data, and this is the only data that it actually adds to your data set. It's also possible to add based on a modified date and add this to your data set. That's also possible. You can exceed the 10 gigabyte data set limitation of your report. So this is something that you can actually achieve with this. And yeah, the major benefit of this is, of course, you don't need a full reload. You only need to reload the most recent data, and yeah, in most cases, it will be very, very, very fast. It also supports data flows. It's also a very interesting one. The downside of this, it has downsides as well. We need to use a date time parameter, not a date parameter, but a date time parameter. And the biggest advantage, yeah, in my opinion, is that we can't download the PBIX file. Once you enable incremental refresh and you publish it to the Power BI service portal, you won't be able to download the PBIX file because it can exceed the 10 gig dataset limit. It can grow up until I think 12 gigabyte of gigabyte. That's a thing. I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty convinced that it can go up to 12 gigabyte. But in any case, you won't be able to download your PBIX file. You can still extract your data by making use of XML endpoints, but this is already a little more advanced to do this. Okay. For the aggregations part, also very, very interesting. With the aggregations part, you actually are going to create an aggregation table. So you have your detailed fact table. Next to it, you're going to create an aggregation variant of your detailed fact table. And actually, Power BI is very, very, yeah, it's very sophisticated in a manner that it will it will calculate the measure that you select based on the measure that you select. Power BI will look to or the aggregated table or the detail table. If you don't need anything from the fact detail table, then Power BI automatically will use the aggregated table, which in most cases, of course, contains a lot less data. Especially interesting if you use composite models. So for example, if you use a direct query and if you use a direct query and an import at the same time. So you can use an import for your aggregated table, for example, and a direct query for your detailed table. So you only need to push your queries to the underlying data source only if you need detailed information. Only one downside, in my opinion, it requires a very good understanding of the current data model, especially if you're using composite models and are combining imports with direct queries. Okay, then we've actually came up to the evaluating of the performance. This is, of course, a very interesting part as well, because you did a lot of different actions. You took a lot of different actions, and you, of course, you need to measure what the impact was of your actions. To do this, there are several tools available. There is, for example, SQL Server Management Studio Profiler. I do not advise this tool. It's not as catchy as the newer tools that are using the Tom extension like Tableau Editor and Duck Studio. There's quite a lot of detailed information based on if you're using the SQL Server Management Profiler, but it in my opinion, it's a little bit deprecated. It has been there for quite a long time already, and I can only strongly advise using Tableau Editor or Duck Studio to do your performance tracing. One of the most important built-in features that you can use in Power BI Desktop is the Performance Analyzer. What it actually will show you is it will actually show you the visual render time and the time spent on executing your DAX code. Let me quickly go to the example. For example, let me quickly open this one. Okay, so for example, in the beginning of the presentation, I showed you guys this is the default slicer. This is the default slicer. If we can simply open the performance analyzer by clicking in the view ribbon on the performance analyzer, and we can start a recording. We can refresh our visuals. Okay, so let's start with doing that one. Let's do it like 2 times. Okay, so we have comparable results. So the second time, if we take a look at the, I think it's called let me quickly check. I need this one. Let me quickly see. It's product filter. Yep. So it takes about 300 milliseconds. Yeah, the DAX query is actually, it takes about 11 milliseconds. That's blazing fast, of course. The other is actually the time it needs to render. So not the visual display, but actually the rendering time. This is the other one. Okay, so it takes about 350 milliseconds to fully show us the data and the visual combined. So, for example, if we change this by a custom visual, and we would like to take a look to this one as well, it takes. Let me quickly refresh our visuals once again. When we take a look at our product filter, it takes up about 5 times the same for the exact same filter, show us the exact same slicer. It takes about 5 times the same duration in comparison to the default Power BI slicer. So that's a huge difference, and this is only for one visual. So this is already indicating us, okay, this can be, of course, a lot faster, and this should be your starting point. Always start with a performance analyzer. Take a look at the measures that you're using. For example, we also have all of the other things are measured here as well. You always can take a look at all of those ones. So let me quickly, you can, for example, copy the query over here. You can then take a look in, for example, Duck Studio. Let us connect, I think it was the third one, yep. You can actually very easy make a new connection to our Power BI model. Third one, I think it was the third one, yep. You can easily paste this query. I just copy the query from the performance analyzer, and I can easily execute it over here in DAX. So this actually gives us the list of the attributes that are presented in this visual as well. Okay. So let me quickly take a look at this one. How you can. So we now analyze the filter, for example, but there are a lot of different things that you can still take a look at. For example, if you start a recording and we would like to refresh the visuals once again, when I take a look at this one, it's called. I think it's called this one. Yep. Let me quickly Let me quickly take a look. It's a table, of course. Okay, so that is actually the time that it takes for this table to be rendering. Now, when we paste this one in Duck Studio as well, then we get the exact same table in Duck Studio. And what is very interesting, when you use Duck Studio, you can go to the, I think it's in the home button, in the home ribbon, you can turn on the server timings. And if you then run the same query once again, what it can actually do is it will provide you with a list of all of the different timings. So all of these queries are actually executed when we refresh this table in Power BI. All of these queries are actually executed. So you can immediately see, okay, these queries are actually pushed through, pushed to the underlying data source, all of them. That's very interesting to further investigate this one, of course, and it should. I already mentioned this. This is a more advanced technique, but this is exactly the thing that you would like to do if you need to dive into the performance of a specific DAX query. Always start in the performance analyzer at first, and afterwards move to DAX Studio and check what it actually executes. You can see a functional engine and a storage engine. The storage engine is what it actually, the time that it actually needs to gather the data. The functional engine is the time that it actually needs to evaluate the query, so to execute the actual DAX query. It can be of great use when you're performance tuning your DAX query. Okay. Heading back to the presentation. Yeah, stay on top of your Power BI game. Power BI updates on a monthly basis. Yeah, with the October release, we had a lot of different new options. For example, the premium per user license, etc. A lot of different features that have been added based on, of course, the request of the Power BI community. If you have any ideas, you can always post them on the Power BI community itself, and if you're lucky, it gets picked up, and your feature will be implemented in the near future. Always upgrade to the newest version and enable your preview features and play around with it. I actually enjoy playing around with all of those preview features. It actually, yeah, the features that they actually add new to Power BI or have been great for the past several months at least. Okay, if you would like to see more information, I've actually written a blog post about all of the guidelines, most of the guidelines that I mentioned within my presentation. You can read this blog post on the Lytics website. That's lytics.be, or you can visit my personal blog, which is thedatatrain.be. Okay, so we've reached our destination. So what did we do? We've turned our slow steam locomotive into a streamlined high-speed train, and I think we did this successfully. We've reached our destination. If you would like to get in touch with me, you can always reach out and connect to me on LinkedIn or visit thedatatrain.be, which is my personal blog website. Okay, that being said, Adriano, are there any questions that popped up in the YouTube chat? Okay, let me quickly. Perfect.
All right, okay, folks, some very interesting presentation here. You had an opportunity to get exposed to an extensive set of tasks or checks you can do when you are out there looking to improve your Power BI report performance. We talk about, he gave a great tip about the base measure, got into Tableau Editor, a great tool that you shall have, along with DAX Studio for your development environment there, meaning Tableau Editor, there are external tools that nowadays you can access via the Power BI just on the top on the ribbon. DAX Editor is the same. Performance Analyzer, it's an internal tool to Power BI itself, but very useful, as Lou was able to walk you through. And remember, meanwhile here, drop a question, like the video, drop a question here on the live chat, become a subscriber to the channel. Let's take a look at what we have here. Yeah, we do have a question here from Gina. Is asking, do you have an example of using count rows function as a filter?
Okay. Yeah, I don't have an example right now, but the thing you actually just need to do is you should be able to create account rows, and you only need to check for dimension attributes for which you have fact values, and then you can add this in the filter of your slicer visual. You should be able to do it like this. If it doesn't work out, you can always send me an email, and I can check it out for you and send you the example file if you would like to see this as well.
All right, let us know here. Then if you answer your question here, if anybody else has any other question, remember, just drop a question here in the live chat. We'll be here for the next, about a minute or so. So don't hesitate, don't take long. Also, remember, like, share, and comment on the videos here. And remember to subscribe. Gina said, very good, thank you. And thank you all.
Yeah, thank you for the question, by the way, Gina.
And thank you all for being here with us for this and several other presentations. Let us know you just moved here from your locomotive to your bullet train at the end. So great knowledge here. Opportunity to learn a lot about different aspects of Power BI. I hope that everybody takes the knowledge. The video will be posted here in the channel. So if there's something that you like to review as well, do not hesitate. Just come back and just go through the presentation there and identify where you want to look at. It's definitely a great opportunity for you to refresh and or learn more about Power BI performance here. So tell us, Lou, how did you got into, how can I say, spending more time doing the performance enhancement here, optimizations?
Yeah, actually, the question came from one of our customers. Of course, people are always. Yeah, I mentioned it in the beginning in the introduction. Power BI is getting more traction. A lot of people are actually creating those reports, and yeah, they get the hang of it. They create a lot of different reports, but of course there's one factor that is always recurring. They only head over to IT once they get into troubles, and a lot of those troubles were based on the performance, and actually are lacking performance. And yeah, the thing that I got into this performance tuning because there aren't a lot of different. It isn't very hard to also apply to those guidelines, to actually implement those guidelines. If you just stick to those guidelines while creating your reports, the chances of you running into performance issues would be very, very low, I think. So all of those things are actually, you can avoid them by just simply notifying and mentioning these performance guidelines. And I think that's the major benefit that I would like to teach to you guys. And I hope a lot of the attendees actually picked up something. I'm quite sure that the most of them already new, some of those guidelines, but I'm hoping that that I'm teaching them something new as well.
Absolutely, as you said, it's the guidelines, as you talked about the steps, and you touch different aspects of the report development process. You're talking about visuals, talk about calculations, in addition to the other tools that one can work with it. So definitely, great steps there. I see that everybody's really enjoyed here. Many thanks from Gina, from Eugene, and Ryan. They really like the presentation here. They are mentioning it was a lot of useful and interesting points. Absolutely so. Great contribution
Yep,
to the community here. All right,
that's
so
greatly appreciated, of course.
absolutely. And folks, I don't see any more questions here. Let me know. And just another few seconds here, otherwise, we'll bring to an end. I'd like also to remind you all, please take a minute, subscribe to the channel so you're aware of when the videos are made available. Upcoming events as well, remember to subscribe to Meetup. And if you need any of that information, you want to recall and reach out to Lou here. If you look in the comment section, his LinkedIn is shared, so you can reach out, connect, ask him questions, and follow up with any other question you may have, whether now during the presentation and or after. And also remember to join the user group so you can stay abreast of all the different new technologies. As Lou pointed out, every month you get a lot of new features and capabilities out, whether it's preview or GA for general availability. Take a final look. All right, Lou, looks like no more questions here. I would like to thank all the attendees who took their time here to be here, and as well as you who took the time to prepare and be here with us. I know it's late there in your area,
Yeah,
which
the
is in
pleasure was
Belgium.
mine. Yeah, at the moment it's 10:30, but I'm actually happy to. I always enjoy speaker sessions, and I would like to thank you as well for hosting this event. And it's always a pleasure to present, of course.
Hey, thank you as well. And whenever you have other presentations, feel free to reach out. We're definitely always looking out for those interesting presentations, as well as the community in general. If you're a presenter and or not, but if you're a presenter, would like to present, please do reach out. Let us know. You get
Perfect.
our
Well,
contact here, and you too. And if you are in the community but has never presented, feel free to reach out via Meetup, message us. We will walk you through the entire process, whether it is from topic selection all the way to walking through a demo presentation that will lead you to do a presentation. So please do reach out, folks. And as well as you, Delu, your next topic you may be interested in sharing with us, feel free. All
yeah,
right.
okay, I will do so. I will do so. Thank you.
All right. So with that, I would like here to bring to an end and thank again everyone. There's no more questions there. And good day, good night,
Yeah, wishing you
everybody.
all a very good evening.
All right, folks. Take care, you all. And thank for being with us. Bye bye.
Bye.
All right, man.